What is going on, guys? My name is Tyler Lauder. I am joined here with Aaron Benn. This is Second and Short, the NFL's newest, hottest podcast. Wait, I don't think I can say the NFL's newest, hottest podcast because we're not getting paid by them. But if they're listening, we will take sponsorship anytime you guys want to send it our way.
Yeah, just hit us up. Waiting for that call.
Just call me, beat me if you want to reach me.
If you want to page me, that's okay too.
So, yeah, in our first episode, we pretty much talked about all news and notes that we had at the start of free agency, and we broke down the AFC South. And we're going to kind of switch gears. We're going to go to the NFC side, and we're going to go to its cousin, the NFC South. This is really going to be fun because, last episode we talked about Aaron's favorite division and team in the Titans, and now we could talk about my favorite division and team in the Panthers. But before we do that, how you doing today?
Doing well. I'm running a little short on sleep, but other than that, we're doing fine.
What dedication, like you're choosing not to sleep to provide quality content for all of your fans?
I mean, that's just the kind of person I am. That's just what I want to give to the people who listen to us. All three of them.
Yes, both of our sets of parents and our wives. It's a little more than three. All right, so let's start with some news and notes as we always do. And I say always because it's our second episode, so far I've always done that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a regular thing.
So we talked about the NFL draft potentially getting moved to a private venue. I'm hearing more reports that maybe it's going to be like all teleconference or like video conference, and you're just going to kind of see like 2 or 3 people inside the war room. Which will kind of be cool because normally we only get to see the war room at the very end, like when somebody's getting the call. But the NFL general managers they unanimously voted, I just saw a report, to postpone the NFL draft. And Roger Goodell said that they're still going to have the draft on the same date. Before we go into more details on why, what do you think about him just kind of like putting his foot down?
Well, as a fan, I don't want to postpone the draft. I want to see it happen. I mean, the first few weeks of free agency are over with all the excitement, and now it's like a dead period between free agency and the draft, and we just want to get on with the draft already.
Yeah, and a lot of the general managers, what they were saying was that because of this situation with the coronavirus and the lockdowns, and nobody's allowed to do pro days or travel, as we kind of said yesterday or the other day, that they want to be able to get the proper amount of physicals so that way they can hit on their draft picks more with a higher success rate, essentially. Now, I support the general managers there, but again, as a fan, I look forward to the last weekend in April to watch the draft every year.
We have nothing else.
And I think this year more than ever, it sounds weird to say it's critical, it's needed, but as sports fans, it is almost needed to have happen. Yeah, I mean, I think I have watched every marble in the world race, and I'm capped out on watching marbles. So let's get some signings out of the way from outside of the NFC South. Reports are coming out that Brashad Perryman is for some reason leaving Tampa Bay, even though they seem to have everything set up for the dream team. And he's going to go to the New York Jets on a 1-year deal for $8 million. What do you make of this move?
Well, I think Ravens fans are just surprised that he actually exists because he, for the first few years, didn't do anything. And then in Tampa Bay, he showed some flashes. He had some catches there. But, I mean, he may just be chasing the money. He may just be signing whoever offered him the most money, which you can't really blame him for that.
And that might be not at all. No, that might be a smart deal. And I think the reason why Ravens fans are kind of like maybe thinking this is coming out of nowhere, or they're just kind of surprised because, I mean, personally, they shouldn't be. Haven't you ever heard of that like 5th, 6th year wide receiver breakout? Like a mid-career breakout, and that's what Perryman's doing. But no disrespect to him, he is a burner. He's got great size on him. The Jets just lost Robbie Anderson, so replacing him with another speed guy makes sense. for Darnold. You have to keep providing him weapons.
Yeah, what he lacks in hairline, he makes up for in speed.
Exactly. Now, not speed, but same position wide receiver. Devin Funchess is potentially signing with the Green Bay Packers. So they are not going to upgrade their wide receiving room. They're just kind of making a parallel move, in my opinion. I mean, he didn't really get touch the ball last year in Indy because he was hurt. Is this going to make an impact? Is he better than Valdez Scantling and Geronimo Allison? Like, is he better than those guys?
I don't think so. I think at this point we know what Devin Funchess is, and this is basically depth. I think he's an okay like depth wide receiver, fourth, fifth wide receiver, but he'll never be anything more than that. And I don't think he's better than Valdez Scanning or Allison.
You know, I've always thought Devin Funchess was the type of guy that if he can put on like 15 to 20 pounds, maybe a little more, but if he could weigh like 225, he could be a really good like tight end, I thought, because he's not extremely fast. He's got decent route running, but I don't know what it is. He doesn't perform up to the expectations that he should ever since coming out of Michigan, but for some reason he keeps signing these contracts that are going to pay him good money. Let's kind of move into this draft preview that we're going to do. We're going to kind of go over the same thing we did in our last episode, where we're going to talk about the free agency additions and losses, their gains, and then we're going to talk about their draft needs, what positions we think, or the internet thinks, whatever we're going to take, is crucial for this team to succeed in this upcoming season. And we're going to show you what draft picks they have. Now, we're also going to do one thing. We're going to kind of, based on these teams' draft picks, we're going to say with their first two picks what we think would be an ideal situation for them. Not necessarily a player, not necessarily, just drafting. It could be a trade, but we're going to talk about this as well. So let's start kind of similar to what we did yesterday. We started with your team, a team that you weren't a big fan of in your division. Let's start with the Atlanta Falcons.
Ryan from under center, play fake. Matt looks, now going to throw for the end zone. Caught for the touchdown.
Your favorite team?
Oh, yeah. Historically not, but nonetheless, let's give some good takes on them. The Atlanta Falcons have a really steady offense. They're gonna have a change of guard at running back. I think they are going to be more explosive at running back. I think they're going to be really well diverse at wide receiver still. I think they're going to need to figure out their tight end positioning. But Matt Ryan still is delivering into his 30s what the Falcons want him to do. That defense is a whole nother question. But what are your thoughts on the Falcons this offseason so far?
Yeah, like you said, their offense is going to be good no matter what. They have a great wide receiving core with Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. They lost Austin Hooper, but they added Hayden Hurst. So we'll see if that makes a difference. The major question for the offense is Todd Gurley. If his knees are okay, what's going on with that? And then, like you said, defense. We got to see what's going on with their defense. They lost Vic Beasley, who, other than that 1 year, he was literally Von Miller, has not done a whole lot. So we'll see what happens with the defense as well.
Yeah, and they also lose Devondre Campbell, who had a pretty good year at linebacker for them. Play a lot of off-the-ball linebacker. Decent in coverage, decent at tackling and everything. He's seeing his way over to Arizona. And, yeah, Vic Beasley's with the Titans. Austin Hooper's with the Browns. They even lost a center in Wes Switzer. It'll be interesting to see Todd Gurley out there. That's what I'm really looking forward to. Now, Todd Gurley is still relatively young. I mean, his knees are like 50, but he's still around 25, 26. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure he'll be 26 around the start of the season or within the season. He is one of those guys that if he's healthy, this could be huge for them because they're upgrading, in my opinion, from Devonta Freeman, even if Todd Gurley is at 75%.
Yeah, he could be a big difference maker for them.
And I think they kind of see this like writing on the wall where like Matt Ryan it's not like Phillip Rivers where he's only got like 2 years left type thing, what we've been talking about. But Julio Jones is 31. I think they want to capitalize on having Matt Ryan and Julio at the same time, and that's the reason why they made these big splash plays. Getting Hayden Hurst was a pretty big move for them. They traded away a second and a fifth-round pick for him, but that second-round pick was what they got from the Patriots for Mohamed Sanu. So essentially they traded Mohamed Sanu and a fifth. Hayden Hurst was once the best tight end coming out of college in his draft class. If he can put it all together with this team, now he has opportunity to shine, and Matt Ryan likes his tight ends, then we could see a brand new tier 2 tight end step up.
Yeah, and he seemed to play decently well in the snaps he got in Baltimore last season. Although that was a different system, so we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, but he is going from one place that likes the tight end to another place that loves the tight end. That is the one benefit for him. So, with all this being said, the Atlanta Falcons hold 6 draft picks this year. They don't hold a single 5th or 6th round pick, but they do have 2 picks in the top 47. Pick number 16, middle of the road. What's going to happen with them is a lot of people are going to go after these quarterbacks, people are going to go after these receivers, and these offensive tackles. And they're going to be able to get the second best cornerback or outside linebacker, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of who they like, because they can get, like you said, one of those really good guys, a cornerback or outside linebacker. It's just comes down to personal preference for them, I feel.
Yeah, and I think that this is the type of team that, I feel like we say this a lot, and I don't think all teams are going to do it, but best player available is the situation here. I think that they don't need to trade up. I don't think they need to trade down. I think they just need to kind of stay where they're at, draft their players, and if they can get a solid cornerback, which we didn't even talk about this, they lost Desmond Trufant as well. They cut him. So if they can replace their cornerback play and get another outside linebacker, I think they could balance their defense more to complement their offense. Because Matt Ryan can only try and score 35, 40 points so many times. But if that defense can't hold, it's going to be a bad season for them. So let's switch over. Let's move over to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a very fun team this offseason, all because of the man Tom Brady.
This group here is going to be why we win right here. All right? Let's play our best. We've been putting in the tank. You know what I'm saying? Let's pull something out today.
I mean, Jameis Winston is, in our group, a favorite. We like talking about him. He's a fun guy.
I love watching Jameis Winston play.
Exactly.
It's always entertaining.
And what's also crazy is that he didn't even have good knees or good eyes, and he was still dropping bombs out there. So what this tells me is that Bruce Arians gets his way. He wants the quarterback he wants. He gets Tom Brady. I don't know how he convinced him to leave New England, or maybe it was Belichick that convinced Brady to leave. However, this team looks exciting. I mean, not only did they bring in Tom Brady, but they've beefed up that defense by keeping 3 playmakers, Kevin Minter, Shaq Barrett, and Jason Pierre-Paul. They still have 2 picks in the top 50, and potentially they upgraded their quarterback at decision-making.
Yeah, I mean, and I think any quarterback would die to play for Bruce Arians. Look what he did with a 50-year-old Carson Palmer and Drew Stanton a few years ago. I mean, it's pretty much a quarterback whisperer at this point. So we'll see if Tom still has it in him. They gotta keep him protected with the O-line. And I think another interesting thing to see with this team is with Shaq and Barrett, if he can keep up the type of production he had last year. He hit the ground running last year and had a lot of sacks. I don't remember exactly how many, but we'll see if he can keep that production up going into next year as well.
I mean, they chose to sign him to the franchise tag over Jameis Winston, which just shows me that they think he's not a one-year wonder, that he's going to be able to deliver this. Because, I mean, I know when the Broncos drafted him, the idea was that he could eventually complement Von Miller. It didn't really work out. You know, they went a different direction. They got another stud, and he kind of just got phased out. But he found new life in Tampa Bay, and this is what we were talking about in our last episode with Vic Beasley. Sometimes guys just need a change of scenery, and when they get that, they can flourish. And I think that Shaq Barrett probably will continue. Jason Pierre-Paul, what I love is the fact that he is still playing at a high, not an elite level, but playing at a high level despite his own fails in his personal life.
Despite his missing fingers, I mean.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I'm just saying he makes poor decisions and everything on the outside. So, draft pick wise, we got pick 14, 45, 76. You know, they have 7 picks in the first 6 rounds, 5 picks in the first 4. They need an offensive lineman. They need some cornerbacks. I think they need a running back. I know a lot of people like Ronald Jones. They just lost Peyton Barber today to the Washington Redskins. I think they need somebody to start over Rojo. Pick 14 might be a little high, but pick 45 could be a situation where they take Cam Akers out of Florida State, and he could be the guy for them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think Peyton Barber was anything special, but they do need a running back, and I think 14 is a bit high to draft a running back in this day and age, unless it's like Zeke or someone generational like that. So I would have them going offensive line with their first pick. And there's plenty of good running backs that should fall to the second round. So they would be able to pick one of those guys. This class is pretty deep at running back.
Yeah, I think where they're sitting at 14 is that they're going to be able to get the 3rd or 4th best offensive tackle, which is not a bad thing. I mean, they could end up with Tristan Wirfs or Andrew Thomas out of Iowa and Georgia, respectively, and both would be a great pick for them at 14. And they could end up with Jonathan Taylor in the 2nd round. I mean, I honestly think if they take DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers, or Jonathan Taylor, those guys are all starters over Rojo, in my opinion. Now, I also have quarterback as a need. I know they have Tom Brady, but this is not a permanent thing. This is a momentary pit stop. Let's try and win, and if we don't, then that's, it's over.
It's kind of like Phillip Rivers in Indianapolis.
Exactly.
Like you have a 1 or 2 year window where they're trying to win it all.
This is the type of team that I was actually expecting to go out and sign one of these XFL quarterbacks, because it would have been perfect for them to sit behind Tom Brady for 2 years and then get their start in year 3. The Buccaneers look good. They could make the playoffs. It's been a long time for them. Let's move to a team that it hasn't been a long time for them. The New Orleans Saints.
Breaking news, Drew Brees is reportedly set to re-sign with the Saints.
They have been a mainstay in the divisional round of the NFC Championship for the past couple of years. They have a great elite team. This could be Drew Brees' last year. It really could. I mean, I feel like people say that a lot.
I mean, it feels like we've been saying that for the last couple of years now.
Exactly. But I was talking to my father, and my dad actually said, I think this is his last year. And he's never said that to me. So I don't know if my dad's got some like weird intuition or whatever, but if this is his last year, they've got to win. There is no holding back anymore. They've got to get past. Well, here's the thing. A team that's been holding them back in the playoffs has been the Minnesota Vikings. Personally, no disrespect, Vikings fans, I think they're in for a down year. And I don't think they'll make the playoffs. If the Vikings aren't there, I easily see the Saints making it to the Super Bowl. I really do. I think they're one of the best teams in the NFC.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's no reason they shouldn't make it to at least the championship, the NFC Championship, if not further.
And now they have a first-round pick this year. They didn't have one last year because 2 years ago they made that that trade up with the Packers and got Marcus Davenport at defensive end, but they are going to be drafting here at 24. They had a third-round pick, a fourth, fifth, and sixth. So they only got 5 picks this year. However, they've re-signed the main players they need to keep. Drew Brees is coming back. Patrick Robertson's coming back at cornerback. Kiko Alonso's coming at linebacker. And they made a big signing. They've needed a wide receiver too ever since Marquise Colston was their wide receiver, number 1. And they signed Emmanuel Sanders. I mean, talk about that. How much of an impact is he going to have on this team being across from Michael Thomas?
Yeah, we know what Emmanuel Sanders is. He's that speedy receiver who can get open downfield in an instant. I think he should be a great compliment to Michael Thomas. I like Emmanuel Sanders. And you were telling me the other day, and I think I read it on Reddit as well, that if they do make the Super Bowl, like we think there's a possibility they could, then Emmanuel Sanders would be the first player to play in the Super Bowl for 4 different teams. That would be the Steelers, Broncos, Niners, and then the Saints. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty insane. That is impressive to see. And what I love about Emmanuel Sanders is that he's not afraid to call people out. I remember seeing on his Twitter like about a month ago when people were like calling him old, and they were like, "Who are you calling old?" And he shows like a workout video, and he's just schooling all of these younger kids, like these like 18 to 20 year olds that are supposed to be in better shape. I think he's a great compliment. That being said, I do think they could still draft a wide receiver in the first round. I really do. I think that Ted Ginn Jr. and Traquan Smith are good number 4s, not number 3s.
Yeah, and I mean, Ted Ginn Jr. is getting up there in age. But he's also kind of like that speedy type, never really had good hands. I have seen a lot of mock drafts having them take wide receiver. I don't know if that's what I would have them taking.
Well, go ahead. Let's project right now. You get to make the pick kind of for their 24th and 88th or whatever you want to do. What do you think they should do at that spot?
I think I would probably go with a cornerback. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm really not sure about anything about the Saints. But I think I would have them go in cornerback, or even just almost sort of a best player available. Like if they see someone fall to where they're at, they could just take it. They could take that player. But I don't know to tell you who they'd take.
Well, I mean, they are losing middle linebacker AJ Klein. They are losing Eli Apple. So I do think that getting a cornerback or a middle linebacker would be good. I don't really know. Oklahoma's linebacker, Kenneth Murray, he potentially could profile as a middle linebacker, I think. I think he has good size. He's pretty explosive. He has a big frame, and he's a really, I'm trying to think of, it's not accurate, consistent. He's a really consistent tackler. And we don't really talk about defensive players coming out of the Big 12 as much because it's all offense. But he's a player they could look to. If they go cornerback, I think they can go, TCU has a cornerback, Jeff Gladney, and maybe A.J. Terrell out of Clemson. There are some players that are, that's insane. If this would be like any other year, these guys would be like top 15 picks. And they're probably going to fall to the 20s due to how stacked this class is.
I mean, they could keep it in state and take one of those defensive players out of LSU. Who is it? Patrick Queen, the linebacker. I'm not sure he'd be available, but
safety Grant Delpit, if they decided.
They have a lot of options at 24.
What about quarterback? Is it time to draft?
I was going to say, yeah, I think quarterback, it's kind of the same situation that we said with the Bucs and with the Colts. Draft a quarterback, have him sit a year or two behind the veteran Hall of Fame quarterback and learn a bit.
Well, here's the only issue with this is that I have a feeling that the top 4 quarterbacks are going to be gone by the time they pick. Do they draft Jake Fromm or Jacob Eason at 24, or do they wait till the 3rd and just maybe take somebody? Or do they just wait and sign somebody in a year or two? Because if Mariota beats out, Derek Carr, Carr could be available next year in free agency, which isn't great, but we're comparing Derek Carr to Jake Fromm at this point.
I mean, they really have the freedom to do what they feel like doing here. Like they could even draft a quarterback next year. Maybe they want to trade up and get Trevor Lawrence.
Very true. Very true. There's multiple options. So,
and now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a builder, an innovator, a motivator, a hard worker, and the new head football coach of the Carolina Panthers, Matt Rule.
Let's talk about the last team here, my favorite team. The team that, and I have no idea what's going on with them. I don't know if they're rebuilding or if they're retooling. I have no idea. There's so much going on. To this point, Carolina has 8 draft picks, but they have lost several players. They have lost 11 starters on offense, defense, and special teams, including, Colin Jones is their special teams captain. That's 11 starters they're going to be replacing this year.
Yeah, and I was looking at the list you had written up of the players they'd lost, and I just saw the sheer amount of players, and I was like, well, you probably wrote every player just because you know that team really well. And then I went through and looked, and these are all guys that had significant playing time. They're all starters, like you said. So it seems like they're going through a huge rebuild.
Well, we say that, and then they pull a situation where they sign Teddy Bridgewater. The whole Cam Newton saga has not been handled well. The Carolina Panthers, and I don't like to say this because I'm a huge fan and obviously and everything, but they don't handle their superstars or like the people that have done the most for the team very well. It started.
Yeah, that's true.
It started back, with Jake Delhomme after he had that Tommy John surgery, and he came back and he kind of just got cut, sent to Cleveland. Like, sorry, you're done. You took us to our first Super Bowl. Steve Smith comes around. Dave Gettleman goes, I don't like old people that are really good, but not really. I don't know. That was weird. He just cuts him out of nowhere. And then this offseason, we have 2 instances where the Panthers say, oh, yeah, it was mutual about Greg Olsen and Cam Newton. And we find out it's not. And
you saw what Greg Olsen posted on Cam's Twitter post, so where he said that it looked like a familiar situation with the Panthers saying that they'd given him permission so he could trade, and Cam saying, I didn't want to trade, and then Greg Olsen said, oh, that looks familiar to me.
Now, in the defense of the Panthers, both those players have been injured a lot in the past couple of years. So it is understandable. I honestly don't think there's ever like a good way to end some player's career unless they retire with that team. There's really no way to you can't ever cut a guy and it's like a high five moment out the door. But let's talk about some positives here. They have cleared some cap space for future years. They are sitting at $35 million in dead cap, which to me is a good thing because that means they're going to get that cap next year. That $35 million in dead cap is more cap space than they had entering this year's free agency. Now, they go out today and yesterday, and they sign some big play starters. Tahir Whitehead, linebacker from Oakland, he used to play with the Lions, and then they have wide receiver Robbie Anderson from the Jets, and now they have a pretty good wide receiver core. Talk about those moves as well as Teddy Bridgewater. Like, what do you get from this team?
It seems like they're trying to establish a base of not like real all-star players, but like these solid veteran players, role players. Robbie Anderson has been a really good wide receiver for the Jets the last few years. These aren't players that are gonna that average fan is gonna know. They're not household names, but these are players that they've been in the league a while. They should set the standard for the new draft picks, young free agents that they're going to try and bring in within the next couple of years.
What about Teddy Bridgewater? Talk about that move versus keeping Cam Newton, going to Teddy Bridgewater, signing him to this 3-year deal.
I think that the Teddy Bridgewater signing was a bit puzzling, especially after we saw how much the average salary comes out to $20 million a year, which is more than what Cam made at 19, but the the way it's structured, he actually doesn't have all that high of a hit this year. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, they can cut him after next year without too much dead cap taking up. But I think people were like, well, if you're rebuilding, then why would you even sign this quarterback who some think he could be a full-time starter, some think he doesn't have the arm, doesn't have the skill to be that full-time starter. So it's kind of a puzzling move, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's one of those moves that takes Carolina out of the whole lose for Lawrence, not tank for Tua, but lose for Lawrence type thing. And I think it puts them in a situation to be competitive in games. Doesn't mean they're going to win games, but I think they're going to be competitive in games. This is a team that's getting built right now to finish 5-11, maybe 8-8, which I guess if the NFL switched into 7 teams in the playoffs, they could squeak in. Now, this division's very hard to win in. Every year it is, because somebody is always elite. Somebody's always on the cusp of the playoffs. What is good about all these moves, as I've been looking at these contracts, is you're correct on Teddy. After 2021, they can cut him, and it's pretty much like nothing. All of his guaranteed money is in the first 2 years. Almost every player that we have on their ad list either signed a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal, which means going into the 2021 season, going into the 2022 offseason, they're going to have 80, 90 million in cap space. And if they draft a rookie quarterback next year, then they'll be able to have a rookie contract plus all this cap space. And I think that's the idea. Matt Rule got signed to a 7-year contract. I feel like it's going to be a very slow process with him, and that they're going to allow him to build and develop.
Yeah, that 7-year contract made it look like they're willing to take their time. They're willing to give him the time he needs to build what he wants to.
Alrighty, well, first 2 picks. Let's talk about this. It's the only thing we haven't covered yet, and then we'll be done. They got pick 7, pick 38. What would you do if you were them in this situation? Like, if you got to tell us, are you retooling or are you rebuilding before you make these moves? Like, what are you doing?
I think they're in a position where they can draft the number 1 player at a position, who will be like a superstar starter for their team in the next 5-10 years, because they're sitting at pick 7, and I think the expectation is that 3 quarterbacks are going to be taken in the top 6 picks.
Oh, 3 quarterbacks plus Chase Young, so that's like 4 picks already there done.
Yeah, so I mean that just leaves the Lions and the Giants. So the Panthers could be in a position to take Jeffrey Okudah if no one takes him. They could take Isaiah Simmons. They could take what's his name, Derek Brown. So they have a lot of options at that pick. No matter what, they're going to get a real standout, probably defensive player.
And yeah, so what about second round? What are you thinking? Like, so are you on this idea that maybe they just go all defense and just kind of rebuild this defense that has been butchered through retirement and free agency?
I think that looks like the smart move at the moment, because they most of their offseason moves have been adding offensive guys. Like, they had a couple linemen, they had a couple wide receivers. So I think they would want to build up that defense first through the draft this year.
I think what would be an ideal situation, and I know a lot of people say this and everything, but I think they should trade back. I think that they should start collecting more picks for next year's draft. Like, I feel like they should lose trades this year by trading back, 6-7 spots and only getting a pick next year. I just think it would be beneficial because you can still, anywhere in this first round, you're going to get a guy that's going to be a starter for you, ideally for the next 10 years. That's how I look at. That's how I look at the first round here. You're getting a stud no matter where you go. But ideally, that's the whole point about this, is finding the right guy at the right spot You can draft him at 7, you can draft him at 20, but I think trading back is a ideal thing. And I do think that going heavy on defense and offensive line would be ideal.
Yeah, given how deep this draft class is, I think that would be a pretty good idea as well.
Alrighty, well, that is going to do it here for us at Second and Short. I'm Tyler Lauder. He's Aaron Benn. We hope you guys are enjoying this little thing that we got going on. We'll be back, later on with another division.
Sounds good.
Alrighty, well, thank you guys for listening. Again, we will see you guys next week. Have a good night.
I love you.